Okay. All right. Hi, everybody. Welcome. It's Wednesday. Wow. Okay. I'm a little nervous. Number one, I'm a little nervous about today, but we'll get through it. Because I am actually kind of excited because so we're going to be discussing today specifically kind of the contracts process. I mean, I know that a lot of people have struggled and felt that all of these university agency agreements, it's really tough to get them all executed. There are multiple people involved. So we have been listening to those concerns, and we have been trying to make S4 do, on some level, some amount of the heavy lifting with contracts. Now, I'll talk about it, and I'll talk about what we've created. I certainly want to open this to questions. Additionally, Nicole at San Jose State is going to join us. She has moved into an online contracts process. She's going to be a little late to this meeting, but when she joins in, we're going to ask her how it went in terms of launching for her. Another person that a lot of people have used as a resource is Andrea Wells at CSU East Bay. She has also gone pretty much almost fully digital with her contracts process. So it is possible to do, and we'll talk about how they have achieved it, with the understanding that S4 can only do so much. That does not replace the fact that you have to have good relationships and a really open dialogue with your risks and procurements and the way they function. And that varies from campus to campus. And you have to have good dialogue with your IT folks in relation to what it means to have a contract executed with electronic signatures. Either of those can be complete deal breakers, and has nothing to do with anything aside from the fact that every campus has different policies and everyone's offices run a little bit differently. Andrea had to be on she was out on a training today, so she couldn't be on the call. But one thing she did relay to me, that one of the reasons that she has been able to be successful in terms of implementing a digital process with her signatures was, one, she's just doggedness, but two, she bakes a lot of cookies. So some of this is just about interpersonal relationships, that S4 can only do so much there. But we have listened to what we feel we can do in order to help the process. And so that's what I'm going to go over today. Obviously, the chat is on. If you have questions, you can go into the chat. I'm going to share my screen and show you some of this from the point of view of Hetch Hetchy. This is going to be, I don't want to call it rough, but it's a little rough in the sense that, I'm not going to use documentation, but I'm just going to kind of show you the elements and the pieces I think you need to know about. But because every campus is different, every process is different, every campus has a different contract, your requirements will be different. So I'm really going to talk in somewhat general terms. So you don't need to think of what I show you as, oh, this is the only way it can go. But I'll show you kind of what we have incorporated and kind of why. So first things first, I'm going to share my screen here. All right. That doesn't need to be open. Okay, so we're going to use Hetch Hetchy so that I can show you a bit of how it works. Now, low-hanging fruit, and I think everyone is aware of this, when it comes to contracts, if you are just doing completely paper contracts, the one thing that that S4 can do is it can store your contracts, even if they're paper contracts. But if you've uploaded them into a PDF form, you can store them in S4. And there's actually a video on the YouTube channel that shows you exactly how to do that. Just running through really quickly in order to show you where that is. We encourage you to store the contracts in the sites. Specifically in the parent site is our recommendation. There are log entries at both the program site level and at the parent site level. But the parent site level is designed to be sort of the administrative task area for anyone who's using, for example, ACES Soccer Club. And you can go to the log entries, and there you can see any entry that you've created, and you can put your contracts there. The other piece of that, of course, too, is you can see within log entries is the ability to create a site from a proposal. I'll go over that a little bit, but you should also be familiar with proposal forms. Some of your campuses are using them, some are not. The proposal form is a way for you to easily get the information that you want to get in order to feed it into a new site. This is sent to your community partner, essentially. We have a template one, but many of you have taken the initiative. If you had additional questions that you wanted to ask, to create this in such a way that you can use it, and then it will be stored within the site that you create. This all, however, does not touch, besides storing the contract, it doesn't touch kind of a little bit more, which is, okay, well, how would we actually use S4 to create a contract? And so let me also show you one other piece, which is the management of like where a particular site is in terms of the contract process. You can also use S4 for that, even if you're not doing an electronic contract itself. So for example, we'll take Aces Soccer Club. You can see that in the upper right-hand corner of both the parent side and the program side, you have that quick sort of site flag that you can pull down. And you can see these can be done per campus. So you can have these specific ones, the what you want these to say. So oftentimes you can use this as a way to say, okay, this is a site with whom the contract is pending, or it needs review, or the contract has expired. So you can use this as a way to mark sites. And then you can go into reports and you can do a site report, and you can pull up and sort by the flags. So you can immediately find out what contracts are pending, what need review, that kind of thing. And additionally, you can do that as well with the log entries. Most of you are familiar with this, but the log entries can have an expiration date on them. So if you have uploaded a contract and you put an expiration date on it, you can do a site search or a site report by log entry. That's another option. So these are all ways to help you manage your contracts process. What we have then kind of added on is the ability to actually execute a contract in S4. And there are two ways that this is being used. One in which the community partner does not need to be logged into S4 in order to sign the contract and have it passed on. And another way it's being used is that the community partner has to be logged in order to sign the contract and pass it on. And these are just two different schools who have two different requirements from their IT teams and from their procurements team about the requirements for what they need. In both of these cases, the one kind of caveat is that this can be done as long as there are no changes required in the contract. Obviously, if we're going to be using a kind of a formulaic contract, if there are changes that need to happen, then it kind of makes the digital process moot. So here in Hetchy, what I've done is created a form that I like to call the contract form. You'll see a new option for you is a new category of form called contract. So be aware, we have signups, end of service, other types of forms, and now contract form. I created this just sort of based on a general template of one of the contract forms. Most of yours are all very similar, but there are differences, and you can have whatever contract you need. Some of the things that are similar is, like, for example, the effective date, the date of the execution of the contract is locked in here. It can't be changed. It has to be today. The termination date then is 5 years from today. That's one thing that someone added in. All of this language obviously can be related to your specific university. It's pretty boilerplate stuff. Now, as we get down to the bottom, this is where things get a little hairier, I guess we'll say. One is, oftentimes with most of your contracts, you need to get the contact information of the approving representative of not the university, but of the agency. So this all ends up getting filled in by the person on the community partner side who's executing the contract. Now, the other piece then, there's another one, which is the university contacts. This can be executed in two different ways. One, and the way I have it here, it's standard and it's built into the form. Now this is based on Eastbase form because they don't require, the way they're doing it is they're not requiring an actual signature of the university, only a signature of the partner. So they just sort of made this kind of go in there. The other way that we have done it with San Jose is that actually the community partner fills their stuff out and signs it. And then there's another area for the university partner to have a actual e-signature as well on every contract. So, the variation when it comes to these contracts, we're talking about kind of down toward the bottom when we talk about how they get executed in terms of the signing.
Christina Nicole's on. She says hi.
Oh, great. Hi, Nicole. So glad you joined. I'm going to have you weigh in here after I kind of go through the general. Okay. So So this is kind of your typical form. Now, how do we get this form to a new site? Basically, and if you are using the proposal form, you will have created a new site in S4, right? Now you can create it from a proposal form, or you can just create it from whatever documentation you have. You create a new site in S4, and then there are a couple of things that you can do. If you are not requiring that the community partner log in, it's pretty straightforward. I mean, you can do, for example, let's just take, you know how I love Adam's Apple Farm. Let's take Adam's Apple Farm, and let's say we put the site on there where the contract needs approval. Well, you can, if you're not going to require someone over at Adam's Apple Farm to log in, you can essentially just make sure that the form is set properly. You can send them the direct link to the contract. So what you would do is send them this link here in an email, copy paste, send it in an email, and says basically like, dear whoever the contact is for Adam's Apple Farm, dear Adam, hey, please execute this contract, and then we'll finish it up on our side. Once the contract is executed by Adam's Apple, let's pretend I'm Adam, and I just got an email from someone, and they said, here's your contract, go ahead and sign it. He doesn't even have to log in. He just has to click on that link, and he's seen the contract. So Adam's Apple Farm does his thing, fills out the pieces he needs to fill out, Adam, etc. These can all be required if you need them to be required. I'm not going to fill it all out. Adam signs. I'm just in the mood, people. Bear with me. Adam. And then he goes ahead, and in this case, we say, okay, go ahead and submit. It's not done until CSU head Chechi signs it. So it's submitted, off it goes, they're done. You can have a personal message here for Adam that says something like, allow 48 hours or allow a week for us to process this contract. So what can happen then on the other end is that a designated person can receive an email that a contract has been submitted. Anyone who needs that capability, that can be set up within the form, or you can simply go to the form, go to the submissions, and you can see that Adam here's his contract. He's filled it out. It's been signed by Adam. You got it now. You can do a couple of things with this. You can turn it, and this is what I believe East Bay does. They turn it into a PDF, and then they store it in S4. I think in the process, what she does is she turns it into a PDF and sends it over to contracts and procurement so that they have a copy, and she stores one in S4. So, that's one way. If you don't even have to have the community partner log in, that's one way that you can execute this agreement. So downloading the PDF means that you essentially then you have the PDF, you download it, and then you go back to that site, Adam's Apple Farm, you go to the log entry, you upload it, you make a note and upload it at the parent site, I would recommend. Go to the log entry, create a new log entry and upload that contract, put an expiration date on it so that you can be notified later when it's about to expire, and you're kind of done. So it does allow you, I'm going to stop sharing my screen for a minute. It does allow you to begin to use S4 and use the forms to execute that contract. Now, the other way that we're doing it, and I'm going to have Nicole address this one, that might not work for everybody. It might not work for your contracts and procurement. With Andrea, they said you don't have to be logged in, but you do have to capture the time of the submission and the name of the submitter, and we want the signature to look kind of like a real signature. Those are their requirements. Yours might be a little more robust, and I think Nicole can speak to this, where they actually want you to have the community partner have a login name, so that you can capture the login name, the computer they've worked off of, and you have a record of that. And so we've set S4 up so that not only can you execute it with an anonymous person, but you can execute it with a community partner who has been verified by your organization. So I am going to, Tracy, you need to spell check. Chief University. Yes. I typed that very quickly. So Nicole, would you let folks know too how in particular how the process has gone up to this point, because we're still kind of testing out for Nicole how it's going to go. But could you let us know how you managed to even get to a point where you could execute electronic contracts?
So we had a long, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. So we had a long conversation with our contracts and purchasing office to allow us to do this, because we thought it would be easier than having a bunch of hard copies going around campus, having to upload and download PDFs, et cetera, to get people to sign them. So they approved it, and we're testing our first round right now. Right, Tracy?
Crossing fingers.
And of course, they asked for modifications. So they found a little hole in our system that now we got to figure out who's going to do generic UOAs and process those, doing our purchase rec system that we were using in the old way that we now have to use in case anybody has modifications. So that's the one hiccup that we have to deal with. But we think it's going to work. The user that we've been using, the site we've been using, they were really quick with the turnaround. They got an email this morning. They logged in. They even went back, signed it, and now we're off and running. So we were even getting complaints. We weren't actually responding to them quick enough. So it seems to be working. Tracy and Brianna did a huge job on getting it up and running for us. So thank you, girls. But I think it's going to work. We're waiting for one more so we can sign it and see if that works for having our on-campus person sign it. But we don't see any issues with that. The only problem we're having is we're doing some transition with our community engagement office right now. So figuring out who's owning what and how to manage all this project has kind of thrown some roadblocks as we've been trying to progress. But other than that, we think it's going to move pretty quickly. We found some departments it's not going to work with, so we are actually developing a separate system for those departments to ensure that they can still get UOA signed and up and running, because we actually have a campus policy that all internships and service learning programs have to run their off-campus activities through SJS4, so which is what we call our system, our localized system. So yeah, we'll see how that goes, because spring will be our first big semester to try this with all of the new sites coming in.
Yeah, that's great. And I mean, I commend you for, because that is part of it, is the fact that, like, it's, you know, you mentioned already there's, okay, well, that's not going to work for this one particular group. I mean, it just never fails that it's like, oh, the special flower situation, you know.
Well, we have a grad program that has a really great internship program. They've been managing their own kind of UOAs aside from the university system. And basically, we're doing the same thing S4 was going to do for us. And so it was getting clunky because they were having to log in with that system, then log in with our system, and then go back to their system. And so we had people saying, well, then forget it. I just don't want to do it. And we didn't want to lose partners. So we just developed a separate system for them so that it would work. And then we still capture the UOA for that group, and we still house it in S4, but they don't utilize the same process as a lot of our undergrad programs are.
Right. And I think that you have to be realistic about the fact that that is going to be the case. Have to be flexible enough. I mean, the thing that always comes into my head, don't let the perfect be the enemy of the good. You are going to just absolutely run into those situations where you really have to, someone has to be like, okay, for this particular program, does it make any sense? No, it doesn't. We'll make an exception here, but don't let that perfect be the enemy of the good. Keep moving forward however you can with those contracts that you can. And that's especially, I think, notable considering, Nicole, how large San Jose State is and how old San Jose State is, so that there's a lot of entrenchment, in particular, you know, the way certain departments or certain organizations or programs are doing things. I am curious, and you bring up a really good point about the modification. So that was, and as I had mentioned earlier, when it's not the standard contract, when someone needs to have a modification, that kind of changes the game, and then it has to be done basically via paper. I'm not sure if there's any way to get around that. My hope is that is usually, especially for these community partner agreements, the exception to the norm and not the usual norm. And I don't know, Nicole, if you can speak to that, because really it's a question for contracts and procurements, but how often do you find yourself in a situation where...
with modifications?
Yeah.
We actually haven't had too many since we've moved to this new system. We find that it's generally this internship program that we're allowing to have the hard copy UOA modification with. They do a lot of out-of-state internships, and those are generally the modifications we're seeing if it's an out-of-state agency, because they have certain, you know, regulations within their state, so that kind of doesn't apply to some of the stuff we have outlined in ours. Or they're large universities or large corporations, and so they just don't want to sign it just because they're large. So we've been talking with the Chancellor's office and with our local, and I guess there's a meeting later this week where they're going to actually finalize what that really means, because we don't want to lose people like Cisco and IBM over, this little contract. And so they're kind of agree on what is acceptable and what not, as far as, when we can just walk away from the UOA aspect and move forward. But the modifications have been really simple, and those have actually been easy to process as well. So we haven't had any problem with interacting with that stuff either. I have workflows for any of this, so if anybody wants to borrow them just to see what we've been doing, I'm happy to share. Just send me an email.
Yeah, that's huge. That is super huge. Yeah, she shared it with me too. And having that process, and because it's going to be different for each campus, it does end up having to be something where someone, and the other thing, so I had two things, like in order to execute contracts online, what do you need? One was this question about, well, does your campus support the use of e-signatures? The other thing that I put on here was, do you have the appropriate staff structure to shepherd the contract through? And I think that has to be noted and notable. A lot of us think, oh, if we just do it digitally, that'll just take care of everything. Yeah, not so much. Yeah. So you do have to have the right people in place. And, I echo Judy in the chat, said, thank you so much for doing such great work as the keymaster on your campus. And I have to echo that. I keep saying, whatever happens, you can't be taken off this project because it is that, just shepherding it through and saying, we're going to put this, it's about putting a system in place that works, and having the right people and knowing where those bottlenecks are. So thank you so much, Nicole. And then I did want to, so based on that too, a couple of other things I wanted to share with all of you. By the way, if folks want to ask Nicole questions or us here at S4, feel free to do so. Just do the throwing up of your hand or the chat. Yeah. Because I did want to show everyone, share screen again, and just show you again, some implications. I'm going to share my whole screen if I do this right. Implications for sites and sort of other ways in which you have to a certain extent manually do this process. So for example, I'll actually show you when someone is logged in. What did I use? Oh, I used Computers, Loaves, and Fishes. So let's say Computer, Loaves, and Fishes is a new site. They contacted us. I created a parent site and a program site for them as we're moving forward with the contract process. Here's what I did then as a staff person. I put in the site flag that the contract is pending. Now, in this case, let's say we're on a campus where we do require that the community partner be logged in to execute the process and to execute the contract. Well, then what you need to do is have, and this is the way we've associated it, the main contact information at your parent site needs to be the person who's going to be signing the contract. Now, I know that this can sometimes be one of those, but sometimes it is the right person, and sometimes it's, my main contact at that institution ends up not being the person who's signing it. There's only so much we can do about that. That is the reason that in the parent site, we do have an area for an administrative note. So this is a great place to say something like, make sure to contact so and so, blah, 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 whatever you need to put that helps you to manage that site. You can put that in the administrative note. But the other thing you're going to want to do then is the main contact information at the parent site is all right here. And what you'll see is that there is an area for related user. So very similarly to what I talked about last week, which was how to grant access to community partners at the site level in order to manage the program site and in order to manage students and sign forms and things. It's the same thing for the contract, only instead of it at the program site, the contract's executed at the parent site, and the related user is related to the parent site, not the program site. So that's one thing that you will see. And then on the bottom, you can see you can just save it and create a user. So the specifics of how to create the user went over the last time. I have documentation on that. I sent that out with my last email blast. So, it'll just take some time for us all to kind of get used to how to work with community partners. So don't shy away from that. But essentially your user, if your user is here in the main contact information, so in this case, Peter Parker is going to be signing for Computer, Loaves, and Fishes, and it says contract pending, you can contact the community partner, and you can basically say, hey, anytime you can go in, log in using your S4 login, and you can sign the contract. So let me just log out here and show you then, and it's real easy. Let me show you what Peter Parker then sees as, oops, he actually doesn't, now I can use this. Community partner login, yay, new button. I'll use it instead of the fake backdoor. So Peter Partner, I called him Hetch. He signs in as the partner, Hetch. And keep in mind now, I've only associated him with the parent site. I haven't even done anything with him with the program site. This is just to get the contract through. He will see the pending task that's awaiting for him, which is the university agency contract. He literally has nothing much more to do here. So, and we do that on purpose. Boy, just lead that horse to water. Lead him to water. And so then he can go through and he can execute the contract. And in this case now, he is logged in as the community partner. You can see his email up here. So that when he signs, what was his name? Adam? No, Peter Parker. Peter Parker. And he's executing the contract in this case, then what you'll see is that once that's been executed, and again, he can have the message, whatever it says, then when you log in as staff again, you can get an email that says it's been executed, but what you'll notice is that in the form itself, university agency contract, we have a new submission here. See, it's captured the username this time, whereas when we did it before without the username, it does not capture who the user is. So now we know who the user is. We have the site that they're associated with. We have their email and their phone number and a name for them, as opposed to the anonymous. So that's the benefit of creating that partner login. You know, it adds an extra step, but it is more of an authentication piece. So that may be something you'll want to discuss with both IT and with contracts. If you need to have that discussion with IT and with contracts, I also have included in the documentation, and you can also find it in the need help area, information for program staff about things such as risk contracts related, e-signature information and roles and permissions and how we grant that. That's good stuff to look at so that you're familiar when you talk with contracts and when you talk with IT, what we're talking about when it comes to e-signature. You're welcome to share this information with them. It goes over such things as what is the CSU electronic and digital policy that's available, but also how S4 supports e-signatures, what it does do and what it doesn't do. So this is a helpful document that I highly recommend that you review if you're going to have this conversation with your peeps. With your peeps. Okay, I'm trying to stop sharing my screen, but I can't get to it now.
You didn't show them the login tree?
Oh, should I show them the login tree?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Okay, since you did that.
It's fancy.
It's fancy. I think what you did, let me go back to Hetch. Once that document was executed by Peter Parker, if you go back to the site where he executed it, which is Computers, Loaves, and Fishes, at the parent site level, you'll see that the one thing that has changed is the site flag has gone from contract pending to contract needs approval, because that final step needs to happen where someone at the university has acknowledged and then finished the process. So again, there's the point where you need to have the proper staff to support and shepherd the contracts through. We don't have it do too much. We don't have S4 do too much automatic. And the reason we don't is because everyone always has some sort of like, oh, but ours shouldn't have it do this. So for example, we don't automatically inactivate and then activate the site once the contract's been approved. We make you do that manually because there are some cases where people wanted to have the site active before the contract was done. There's some people who want to wait till the very end of the contract process. There were too many variations to manually make that happen. However, we made it very simple. You just inactivate or activate with a button. You guys can touch buttons. I know it. Additionally, in the log entry of the parent site, you'll see that when we have the person appropriately affiliated, because we know who they were when they signed in, the submission to the contract lands in S4. This is the submission of the contract. Now, what we are recommending and what Nicole has decided is that it's not quite enough to have the submission. What they do is Oh, the wrong one. What they do is they turn the submission into a PDF. And that way they can send it to the partner and they can have a PDF. PDFs are just a little more secure because, then it's just a done document. It's a PDF. You can have it on your local, you can have it here, but it's a more of a paper, kind of like more of a version of a paper form. So I think that's my feeling is, and Nicole, feel free to weigh in here, is that that's probably a safer way to go. So there's the submission, view submission. There it is. So you can see that's the submission, but you can still, again, generate a PDF from that submission. And it's right there in the contract, in the site log.
Nicole says they're keeping stuff offline as well.
So just to be safe, yeah, even though, and it's good to know, I mean, S4 does a nightly backup, but yeah, we're talking about contracts here. And I don't know of any other systems that do everything S4 does when it comes to executing a contract, but also all the other things. So, better safe than sorry, right? How do I get, stop, I know.
No.
Where I move it? There we go.
Yeah.
Okay. Stop. Am I stop sharing? Yeah. I'm going to figure out my computer one day. Okay. Great. Let's see, I think that's mostly it. That's all I'm going to go over. What I'm going to do is, now you'll see the managing community partners document is in, as I sent it with the last email. It's also in with the YouTube video of last week. And so as questions come up, great, let us know. I think that some of you are brave souls and you're going to go for it. You're going to allow some community partners to enter into S4, and do let us know how it works. I see Adrian is on the line from CHHS. Hi, Adrian. And, when we had discussion about having the community partner log in, make sure too that you have a reason for the community partner to log in. So, I think it helps to not just say, hey, we've got this new feature, go ahead and log in, but that they have a goal in mind, which might be to fill out an evaluation, or it might be to update the site information. But having that goal is not just so that, oh, great, you can log in. Like, they need to have a reason to log in. So consider that too, like the timing of your launch with your community partners could be important, because it needs to relate to something that they need to execute, not just technology for technology's sake, obviously. Okay. Anyone have any questions? Now's your chance, especially because a lot of us are going away next week, because it's a holiday. Oh, Adrian, go on. And I'm, by the way, having a good hair day. I don't know about all of you, but I'm having a great hair day. This is like, I'm so excited. We've actually kind of going to get done. I'm not going to be like, I know I said it was only going to be a half hour, but it's really 45 minutes. So I'm going to finish up. So I wish all of you safe travels if you're traveling anywhere for the holidays. In my follow-up email to this, I will share with you a wonderful picture that Brianna has taken of some wild turkeys. If any of you knows or needs a turkey, we have some here at CSUMB, which you're welcome to figure out how to appropriately commandeer for next week's needs. They're actually all over her lawn. So I've always wanted to get one. I just haven't quite figured out how to do that yet. So if someone would like to help me to figure out how to catch a turkey, I'm game.
No, they're game.
Fair game. Okay, we're going to end on that. All right, everybody. Take care, and thanks for all your hard work in S4. Bye.